In my culture, there is an object said to hold immense power, an object that can cure the most deadly diseases, cure the incurable, and even bring the dead back to life without consequences. This object is known only as the Chalice. Every 12 years there is a series of trials a handful of the townspeople participate in, but only one is ever bestowed the gifts of the Chalice. No one knows what takes the trials will hold since they change every time, but it is rumored that only those who are pure of heart will be able to make it through. This was a defense mechanism designed by the creators, so that no one would ever use its powers for evil. My name is Annabelle Latrice, and I am 19 years old. This year, the year of the cherry blossom, was my turn to compete in the trials. I needed to do this in order to save his life. He is the only one that I have left. I can't let fate take him, like it has for everyone else. It has come time for me to prove to myself and everyone around me that I can save him, and that I'm more than the girl no one can get close to. So here I stand in the trial hall in my ceremonial blue and gold robes. My blonde hair is tied back in a French braid that is twisted up in a bun-like fashion and securely pinned up. My golden eyes were glued to the large ornate carved stone doorway that stood a mere 10 feet in front of all 12 of us. Finally, after what felt like a lifetime, the trial's master's droning came to an abrupt stop and the door creaked open. Beyond the doors laid an ominous stone maze that flickered as if it was trying to stay in focus. The doors opened to reveal an ominous stone maze that seemed to flicker in the distance, as if it were trying hard to remain on this plane. One by one we started to step into the maze, flicker, and then disappear from view. I took a deep breath, stepped through the doors, and began my trials. Now that I was inside the stone maze, I could see that the stones looked as if they crumble underneath my fingertips, and the air held a thick fog. I could barely see what was right in front of me. I wandered through the maze for what felt like days, coming across several traps and tricks. As I ran from some sort of large growling beast on its prowl, I caught sight of an opening in the maze walls. The opening changed my scenery to a dense forest spread. At this point I was more than willing to revel in the change of scenery. The dreary maze conditions were really starting to test my resolve. After wandering through my new environment for some time, I came across a large injured beast that cried out in pain. I approached the creature with extreme caution, not knowing whether or not this was a trap. All I knew was that if this creature really was as hurt as it appeared to be, then I couldn't just leave it there to suffer. As soon as I was within arm's length, I stupidly closed my eyes and stretched my hand out toward it as a sign of understanding. I soon felt its hot breath on my arm, quickly followed by a rough tongue as I licked my outstretched hand. Once I knew that we had come to an understanding, it was more likely that he wasn't going to eat me. I moved in closer. I examined his wounds, before searching the surrounding area for some moss to help staunch the bleeding. I then proceeded to tear a section of my robes in order to hold the moss in place. "Thank you," it said in a voice that mimicked the sounds of the surrounding forest. "You have earned the gratitude of the forest guardians. So now I will bestow a choice before you. I can either send you to the end of the trials now, or I can bestow a gift upon you to help guide you. But I must warn you that bringing you to the end of the trials doesn't mean that the blank will be given to you. Which will you choose, little one?" I knew in an instant which I would choose. I came all this way in order to win these trials and prove myself, and I can't do that by cheating or taking the easy way out. "I choose the gift," I responded to him. "Wise choice, the other options would have surely ended in your demise. Now, true to my word, I will bestow upon you the forest spirit blessing," he said as a small green orb suddenly appeared before me. "You will be able to use this orb to guide you to the right choice if come across a task that you are truly struggling with. Let this orb be your light in the darkness." Those were his last words before he disappeared. I took the orb and tucked it away for safekeeping. I then made my way through the rest of the forest with ease. I had yet to encounter anything that would have needed to use the orb for, but I knew deep down that the worst was yet to come. Each test that I come across thus far tested a different part of what makes me who I am. They did so in a roundabout way though, so if you didn't look close enough you would never know what was happening. As I entered a desolate wasteland, I knew my trials were coming to an end. This would be my hardest challenge yet. But what part of myself would I face here? As I stepped forward onto the cracked earth, things started to shift. I started to see the faces of everyone that I had lost, and they were yelling at me. They were telling me how I failed them. They asked me why it was them that had to go. I stopped just inside the wasteland, fell to my knees, closed my eyes, and held my head in my hands. I felt paralyzed by everything that was happening before me. This was my own personal hell. I don't think that I can go on. I thought to myself as tears began to pour down my cheeks. As I retreated farther into myself, thinking this was where I would finally lose everything, a faint glow pierced its way through my soul-crushing darkness. The green glow approached me, and it appeared in his form. Annabelle, he whispered my name before his voice gradually increased inside my head. You are stronger than you think, you can handle anything they put before you. I know that you can do it, just remember none of it was your fault, and that I will always be with you no matter what happens. He reached his incorporeal out towards me. I wiped the tears from my face, before let a small smile pull at my lips, and I looked up at him, and took a hold of his hand. He was right, I couldn't let anything stand in the way of finishing this quest. I was strong and I needed to pull myself together, so that I could make it back to him. I summoned all the resolve that I had left and opened my eyes, picked myself up off the ground. I blocked out the sounds of agony by replaying his words to me over and over in my mind as I trudged forward. As soon as I let my fears go, the landscape before me began to change to a lush field, filled with the most beautiful flowers, and a large ornate throne set in the middle. Upon the throne sat a large golden ethereal creature holding the chalice. Congratulations, Annabelle, you have made it to the end of the trials. You have overcome all your fears and flaws. You have proven yourself worthy of the blank. Your self-sacrifice and your truly amazing spirit have brought you to this point, so please tell me how you wish to use the chalice. As soon as I heard the news, tears of joy streamed down my face as I made my wish. I asked it to save his life, so that we can spend the rest of our lives together in true happiness. As soon as the words left my mouth, I was transported from the trial grounds back into a room that I spent so much time in, a room that was once filled with so much pain and sorrow. However, now all I saw in this room was his bright green eyes and radiant smile as he sat up for the first time in too long, and just took me in as I did the same. It wasn't long until we both stood up and ran into each other's arms. We stood in the other's embrace until we could no longer tell each other apart. We then took a small step back so we could see each other's faces and whispered in unison, "I love you."